Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the campus of Lipscomb University. If I can invite you to please take a seat. And your breakfast will be served as you take your seats. We're glad you're with us this morning for the summer edition of the Nashville Business Breakfast. As always, if this is your first time at a Nashville Business Breakfast, we're especially glad you are here and hope you will come back. When you have a chance to look at your program, you'll note that the next event, next business breakfast, is scheduled on September 7th. And our special guest and speaker that morning will be Randy Goodman, the chairman and CEO of Sony Music Nashville. We're looking forward to hearing Randy and getting a view of the music industry here in Nashville and everywhere. But we look forward to that event and certainly have looked forward for quite some time to this morning. And again, glad you're here and glad you're with us. This is my Nashville experience this week, just over the last few days, and thinking about this boom town and place that we're in. And I was just talking to Brent Culberson from Lipscomb a few minutes ago about the fact that he was downtown just a couple of nights ago, actually Monday evening, to look at the new signage on the Spark building, or the Spark facility that Lipscomb has downtown at night, 10 o'clock. You think the streets will be empty, but Monday night it's nuts and crazy in downtown Nashville, as it is every night in downtown Nashville. But my experience the last couple of days, my wife and I had the privilege of keeping our 3 grandchildren over the weekend. 3 grandchildren, 3 on 2. At my age, that's not an easy thing. They are 7, 5, and 14 months. And so after 3 days, we have the ability to shift them to the other set of grandparents because our son and daughter-in-law are out of town. So we take them to Dixon, Tennessee, where the other set of grandparents are, and they're coming back and decide we're worn out, we need a little break. This is Monday morning, 10 o'clock. And as we're coming back through from Dixon, we decide Loveless. What a wonderful place to go and be quiet and have this nice, relaxing breakfast. 10:30 Monday morning, 45-minute wait, Loveless, for a table for 2. That's Nashville. Traffic, but it's a wonderful place to be. What a great time to be a part of Nashville and the state of Tennessee. And we're just looking forward to hearing from Bob Rolfe this morning. But again, glad you're with us. Hope you enjoy this program. A couple of other things I just want to mention to you. If you'll look at the bottom of the first page of the program, you will see that there are instructions. If you want to text in a question, we will have a Q&A session after Bob speaks to us. But feel free to text in any questions you have, and hopefully we can get to some of those. But again, reminder of the September 7th event. Hope you'll be with us then. It's always a privilege for me also to introduce Kate Herman. Lipscomb and the Business Journal have been partnering in this event for a bunch of years now. And it's just a wonderful partnership. We love being able to do this with the Business Journal, and particularly with Kate and her leadership there. So would you please join me in welcoming to the stage Kate Herman.
Well, good early morning to you all. Such a pleasure to see everyone here this morning for the Nashville Business Breakfast. A big thank you to Lipscomb. We really appreciate our partnership with Lipscomb, and for all the folks that are here working this morning, getting your breakfast together and doing such a fine job. Of course, all of this activity in Nashville is keeping us busy at the Nashville Business Journal as well. For instance, on Tuesday afternoon, we had our first Small Business Summit that we held. And our Small Business Summit was with all of our Small Business Awards nominees who came together and watched a speed panel round of previous small business owners who had kind of been there, done that. And then after that, had table discussions talking about small business topics in which they could learn from other small businesses, also meet some other people, and really develop their network so that they're able to grow here in Nashville. And then also, we have a award winner in our midst that I want to talk about. Our parent company is American City Business Journals, and we have 43 properties throughout the United States. And they give out awards on a yearly basis. And our very own commercial real estate beat reporter, Adam Sitchko, won for the commercial real estate beat reporter for the year. So I know Adam is here this morning. He didn't know I was going to do this, but why don't you stand up? If you don't know Adam, you should. How's that? Well, there's so many fine companies here in Nashville, and I think some of our finest are our sponsors that we have today. I'd like to introduce you to Crow Horwath. Jeremy Nichols is partner at Crow Horwath, and he would like to say a few words this morning. Jeremy, if you'll please join me. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. 75 years ago, two accounting professors at Notre Dame got together to make a little extra money and start doing tax returns. And here we are today. Crow Horwath is an international accounting, consulting, and technology firm. We've accomplished this through deep specialization and innovative technology. Our dedicated employees get to know their clients and help them through the challenges that they face, all the while upholding our core values. We care, we share, we invest, and we grow with our clients, and upholding the professional standards that have been set forth for the CPA industry. We want to thank the Nashville Business Journal for allowing us here this morning, and thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. And another long-term sponsor of this program is PNC. And I would like to introduce you to Doreen Langley, if Doreen would step on up here. She is Senior Vice President in Treasury Management. Please welcome Doreen.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to echo Kate's comments and welcome you all to the Nashville Business Journal. As she indicated, PNC has been a long-standing, proud sponsor of this event. And you make commitments when you're all into something. You want to be there for a long time, and we've certainly done that. So PNC is a branded bank, and I was listening to everyone speak this morning. Nashville has become a brand, isn't it? It's not just a city anymore, but it's a national brand, and it represents certain things. And PNC is certainly one of those kinds of banks for you in this community. And I'd also like to thank Kate Herman and her staff, and Dr. Lowry and the staff here at Lipscomb for allowing that. Could we give them a nice round of applause for all their help for what they've done for us this morning? So thank you again. Enjoy your breakfast and enjoy the community speak that we'll have this morning. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, thank you. And now I get to kick off breakfast. We'll give you a few minutes to eat before we continue with the program this morning, so enjoy.
Once again, I want to welcome you and glad you are here. We do want to get started with our program. I'm sorry to interrupt your visiting at the tables, but we would like to give the commissioner an opportunity to speak to us. So again, welcome. Glad you're here. One of the things that I guess I certainly have it's a privilege to be a part of Nashville. It's certainly been a privilege for me to be a part of the Lipscomb community for the last several years. There's so many wonderful things going on at this institution. And the College of Business is just one of the examples of some great things going on here at Lipscomb. A program that not too many years ago didn't show up in any rankings. Now the College of Business would be ranked, among other things, as follows. In the state of Tennessee, the #2 part-time MBA program for colleges and universities. Nationally, the #2 accounting program for Christian colleges and universities. That's a national ranking. And recently, Bloomberg Business Week ranked the Lipscomb College of Business program as the #1 undergraduate business program in the state of Tennessee among all colleges and universities. Now, Certainly one of the reasons for that has been the leadership that this college has enjoyed and still enjoys. And as we begin the program and continue our program actually this morning, we've asked the current dean of the College of Business to lead our invocation. He's certainly been a huge part of the success of that particular college here at Lipscomb. I'd ask you to join me in welcoming Ray Eldridge, the dean of the College of Business.
Shall we pray? Father, thank you for this very beautiful morning. I thank you for this opportunity to acknowledge that everything that will be good today will come from you. We ask your hand on each one here. We ask you to bless those that lead in government and in business and in education and in our communities. And we ask you to bless each of us as we lead our families. Give us the strength and courage to do well, and to do good. We know you store up sound wisdom for the upright, and you are a shield to those who walk in integrity. Thank you for the positive economic growth of Nashville and for the state of Tennessee, for a business community that is known for excellence and innovation. And we pray that before you that we are thankful, humble, and hopeful. Lord, may our work today be filled with your values, your justice, and your goodness. May it shine with your success. We pray in your Son's name. Amen.
Good morning. Let me add to everyone else our welcome to you and our appreciation for your getting up early this morning, coming in the middle of the summer to think about our community in a profound and important way. You've heard the proverb that comes out of Africa, I believe, the short statement that says, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, the reality is, I think that it takes a community to raise a business leader. The reality is higher education is a part of that. We get them when they're young, and we have about 48 months, if they stay on track, to get them out of our institution and into yours. But in between is this wonderful moment where they have the opportunity in many cases to leave the academy, to begin learning the practice of whatever it is your business does, and to prepare for what might then be their career. So think about it. In just about 5 weeks, there'll be about 100,000 college students in Middle Tennessee. From Austin Peay all the way to Middle Tennessee, here in the Nashville area and 20-some colleges and universities, they will descend upon us and they will be saying to us as a community, we're here to be educated, and a good part of that education will take place in a traditional way in a classroom. But a good part of that education will also take place as you welcome them to your businesses and nonprofit organizations, and as you provide along with us an important part of their education. I say that because today we're going to be talking about jobs and we're going to be talking about economic development. And we can at times think about this as something where we find a corporation somewhere across the globe and we do our best to bring them into this locale. But I'd like you to think about this partnership between the academy and business and the fact that we have 100,000 young people who will come, and you have the opportunity to keep that talent here. I was amazed when I came to Lipscomb and I began to look at where our alumni might be, and someone said, well, Randy, half of our alumni, half of our 38,000 or so graduates that are alive, half of them live in 2 counties in Tennessee, in Davidson or Williamson County. Now, they come from 48 different states and about 55 different foreign countries, but because of your hospitality and your generosity, half of them say, I want to be here. I want to contribute to this economic development, this economic climate, this community, and so they're not too far away from us. And so this morning, I just want to thank you for the piece you play in this, and for you to understand how profound that is, because there's a tremendous connection between the academic experience and the practical work experience, and your confidence then in hiring that young person who eventually in this community will be one of our leaders. And they continue to amaze me in terms of the talent that they bring. In this arena in May, we had graduation, and graduated hundreds and hundreds of students at both the undergraduate and the graduate level. And on this stage, about 10 o'clock in the morning, walking across was a young woman that I knew, and I gave her a master's degree in biomolecular science. And then about 3 hours later, we're getting ready for the undergraduate graduation, and I'm in the hallway out here looking and talking to the graduates, and there she was again. And I walked up to her and I said, "Macy, I gave you a master's degree this morning. What are you doing back this afternoon?" She says, "Well, I'm getting my undergraduate degree." I said, "Now tell me that." She said, "Well, I just decided to really work hard, and in 4 years got both my undergraduate degree in biology and my graduate degree in biomolecular science. She's on her way to Oxford." And I told her and told other people, she's just kind of like the rest of us. Not really. During her college experience, she also started a very effective nonprofit organization, and she will be studying theology because her heart has that kind of emphasis. Or another student that I met at graduation, here's a young man that scored in the top 1% of all the students in the nation on the MCAT, on his way to medical school. And we have in the class of 85 at Vanderbilt this fall, 2 of those 85 will be Lipscomb students. Now, you may not think that's a huge percentage, but think about our friends at Vanderbilt and how they view their medical school as a national medical school. And frankly, it's much tougher to graduate from Lipscomb or Belmont or MTSU and get into Vanderbilt. But there are 2 Lipscomb students there because of the qualities that they bring. Or my friend Coco, who came from Houston, Texas, came here for 4 years, was affected so much by this community, has a heart for service, and so she applied for a Fulbright scholarship. That's one of the most prestigious things a graduate can get at the undergraduate level, and she leaves here in just a few weeks to go to Spain, where she will be a teacher in that program. Now, that doesn't seem significant either, except if you understand the Fulbright Scholar Program, it's relatively easy to position yourself to go to some unknown African nation. It's really tough to get an appointment in Europe. And yet there she is. And the list could go on, and it's not just at Lipscomb, it's many of our colleges and universities. But I just want to thank you for being a part of our educational process, because that is connecting very, very directly to the economic development and the success of your business or nonprofit. We are pleased this morning to have a colleague and someone who thinks about those issues as much as we do and is much more influential in every day pulling things off that make a difference. Bob Rolfe is the Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development. He has a distinguished business career before that. He understands what it is to be the CEO of a large corporation. He understands what it's like to invest in a business and in a community through his work with Bradford and other companies. But he's here with a sense of passion for our economic development. And I had the opportunity several weeks ago to join him in one of those many, many presentations that a community makes to a company that might appear months or years later. And I was impressed with both his demeanor and how he advocated for our community and the impact that has. Bob is married and has been for several decades. He has 3 children, and he brings today, as he comes to address us, a commitment to our community, a commitment to the particular part of it that he works with in economic development, also a sense of faith. And I would ask you at this time to welcome our speaker today, Commissioner Bob Rolfe.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Lowry, it's a treat to be here, to be on your great campus, and spend a few minutes to share what we're doing at the state of Tennessee. First of all, the comments and the introduction, thank you. My mother's, she passed away about 14 years ago. When people introduced me today, I wish she was alive, because she wouldn't recognize the person you introduced versus the person she raised. So I'm still growing in a whole host of areas. So this morning, I want to spend a few minutes and share with you what we're doing as taxpayers, what our General Assembly's doing, what our governor's doing, what my colleagues that are other cabinet members and commissioners are doing to help make Tennessee a great place, not only to transact business, but also a place to live, a place to be educated, and the quality of life. So I spent my first 18 years in the investment banking business here at J.C. Bradford. And what was unique about that experience is I thought that was a career that I would enjoy for the rest of my life. One day, a Wall Street firm came and purchased Bradford, and 1,500 of us all had to go home the next morning. The other 1,000 stayed. And what it gave me an opportunity to do was to go reinvent myself. And then I embarked upon a career of working for small businesses. Nothing terribly fancy, getting in the engine room and working alongside with other people to help make a small difference. And then the goal was to create shareholder value, as any business school professor would tell you, and then I would move on. And about back in January, as we were wrestling with another company and we were preparing it to sell, Governor Haslam called. And he said, "Bobby, I would love for you to come to work for the state of Tennessee." He had reached out to me a couple of years prior to that. And oh, how I wanted to do it. At the time, though, unfortunately, the company where I was working was only $2 million in the red. We were in trouble at the bank. We were a rated 8 credit, and I had just gotten our 300 colleagues together and said, "Guys, we're going to win, and we're going to build a new technology platform, and we're going to change how we transact business and how we compensate our employees." And I sure wanted to just say goodbye, but I stayed. And the great news is we did turn the company around, and March 1st, I became our Commissioner of Economic Development. So what I'm going to do today is go through all of about 8 or 10 slides, and then we will have, I think, a question and answer. Is that right, Kate? Okay. Our job every morning, when you think of our department, it's to wake up and determine what we can do to create more jobs for Tennesseans. That is our mission. I work with a group, 100 colleagues that were there before I arrived and will be there long after I depart. And the fun part about this role is I'm stepping into some pretty large shoes. You all may remember that when Governor Haslam came to Nashville as our governor, he asked Bill Hagerty to take this role, and he spent 4 great years, and he restructured the department, and he focused on the large transactions and was very successful for our state. And we'll talk about some of these successes here in just a minute. And then he went back to private business, and as you guys probably know the rest of that story, he's going to be sworn in by Vice President Pence next Thursday as our ambassador to Japan. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. And then 2 years ago, Randy Boyd stepped into Bill Hagerty's shoes. And what Randy did is he took what Bill was doing and he expanded the mission, because if you look at what our statement, we are economic and community development. And so he created a whole host of rural and community development initiatives and did a fantastic job of expanding our mission, because as you guys know, we wake up every morning in Nashville. And one day there may be 27 cranes, the other days there may be 30 cranes, and then there are days I hear we're out of cranes because there are no more cranes left in the country. But we have another 95 or 94 counties, and we have a whole host of rural counties, and we'll talk a minute or two about some of those initiatives. And we'll talk about our entrepreneurial program, which is a very difficult path. And then we'll finish with just briefly our entertainment commission. So that's what we do. All right, so let me just share with you the report card for what has happened since Governor Haslam arrived. And I'm not going to read all these, but 140,000 jobs for Tennesseans since he arrived, over 1,000 projects. And what I want you to pay attention to is the amount of private capital investment, $28 billion. So ladies and gentlemen, that is a lot of capital. We're always asked, well, how much money did the state of Tennessee put into some of these transactions? And we'll talk about those incentives in a minute. But I'll just simply say, we do not create jobs. Private sector creates jobs. Private sector puts capital at risk and hires people. And that's what helps make success. All right, so 2016, 21,000 new jobs last year. I'll take zero credit for that. But I think that's a testament to what's going on in our state, and it's a testament what goes on in our department every day. And again, you can see the amount of capital. So what's interesting about this last statistic, and I'm not a math major, but there are 2 or 3 statistics I'd like you to just stay with me. And oh, by the way, if you're take another sip of coffee, because this is math for just a moment. But let me tell you what it's about. 70% of last year's jobs that were created, they came from companies who already do business in our state. Why is that important? Well, if you don't get the first set of jobs, you're not going to get the next phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. So that is something that I hang on to, and when I got here, when I was trying to understand what we did, that is an important statistic. Now, that's not to say that we don't spend our energy on the other 30%, and that's bringing companies to Tennessee who have historically not done business here, but that's important. And I tell our guys every day, the first jobs are going to be more expensive. The incentives are going to be great. Because let me share with you another observation. Right now, we are in the most competitive marketplace for jobs. And I'm not talking about local jobs. I'm not talking inside the state. I'm talking about nationally and globally. And I share that with you because we've come to discover we compete when a company says we're going to go invest hundreds of millions of dollars and we're going to build a new plant and we're going to look across the Southeast because of great quality of life and no union and incentives. Guess what? All the other states are competing against us. And they're putting millions of dollars on the table. And our toughest competition, I'll tell you, it's Georgia, it's South Carolina, it's Northern Alabama, it's Mississippi. Kentucky has a new governor. Forget their challenges financially, but they're putting enormous dollars at risk. So it's become a very, very, very competitive market. But again, I go back to what I said a few minutes ago. If we don't get the first jobs, we stand zero chance of getting the second phase, third phase, fourth phase. All right, I want to talk just a minute about our foreign direct investment partners. So we can thank Nissan for changing the way of Tennessee's life. Because when you look at the number of foreign direct investments, that's over $10 billion that have come to Tennessee, 43,000 new jobs for Tennesseans across the globe, 26 countries. And then last year, 800 plus million of foreign direct capital investment, 36 projects, 4,100 new jobs. And so when I first got to the department, I spent the first 60 days, we have 9 offices across the state, 9 economic development regions, where we have colleagues that spend every day working with existing companies to see what we can do to help them. And so I traveled the state and met with our stakeholders. And then the second 60 days, I got on an airplane, and I concluded a long time ago, as beautiful as our offices are downtown, standing behind the desk, sitting behind the desk, sitting behind the computer is not how we're going to win these jobs. So I got on an airplane, and we've covered the globe. 2 weeks ago, I asked the governor to go to Europe, and we hit 6 countries in 6 nights, had 8 very successful meetings, and didn't have one cultural experience because we were recruiting. I think the only thing we did is we took our friends from Nokian Tire, who just announced a couple of $100 million plant. They're going to build tires over in Ray County. Well, if you've not been to Ray County, the seat is Dayton. It is a Tier 4, the most distressed community, and that's going to be a game changer. That's going to be transformational for them. All right, and as you know, we talk about our foreign direct investment partners. Today, we are home. Our great state is home to 930 international companies, employing 135,000 Tennesseans, about $34 billion of capital. All right, so how do we go attract this capital? Well, believe it or not, we have offices in these countries. We have people that work for our department that are embedded in the field, boots, suits, on the ground, whatever you want to say. And so if you look at this, and I've had the good fortunes. Now, I can't tell you it's really a lot of fun because these are places that are way, way, way across the pond. But I'll say this to you. Right now, whether it's a Trump bump or whether it's just noise, but today, the Asian manufacturers who have historically built over the pond and sold here have now made the decision that they're going to build here if they're going to sell here. So we're spending a lot of energy seeing an enormous amount of activity from China, from Korea. Obviously, our partnership with Japan is very important. And then obviously, we've had some successes in Europe. So the other piece to this is about community and rural and community development. And what we have discovered is, again, we're also fortunate because, yesterday I was out in Murfreesboro. Well, they've got a real challenge. It's called workforce development. Now, that's an issue for a lot of our communities. But when you're at 2.4% unemployment, and I think we all learned from our days, perfect employment is 3 to 3.5%, and they're at 2.4. So they're having a hard time filling these jobs. And what's interesting about what we see in the future is today, and I realize this is not a manufacturing-focused audience, but in today's world, when we talk about advanced manufacturing, it's not the same as it used to be, where we would be an assembly plant. Today, what happens in the advanced manufacturing world, it's where technology intersects with automation, and what happens? You have fewer jobs, you have greater automation, you play air-free baseball when a robot does the welding, but the fewer jobs are higher quality, which requires a little more education. So you have a more educated workforce, higher wages. It's not a bad thing. So when you hear that automation is taken over and is going to take all of our jobs, it's not a bad thing, but it is the reality of life today. Heavy CapEx. So I share that to you, and again, that doesn't really impact probably most of you here, but that's what's going on today when it comes to recruiting. So how do we do that? Well, we've got an enormous amount of education. We have, thanks to a great governor and a really excellent General Assembly, we have the opportunity now where every graduating high school senior has the right to go to either a 2-year community college or get a TCAT certificate. And what's so great about that is higher education, it's tuition free, and ladies and gentlemen, it will be a game changer because we use that product when we're competing against our colleagues in other states. We think it'll be a game changer, but the future is going to require additional education. Entrepreneurship, this is the toughest leg of the stool. We partner with Launch Tennessee, and so as part of our budget each year, we provide them with their budget. And I can just simply say to you, this is a tough road to hoe. And I share this personally. I'm 0 for 4 in investing in startups. And so when people come to me and say, hey, Bobby, I've got this great idea, I'll say, if I say no, you're going to be successful because I have had such little success. This is the toughest mile. But when you think about the successes, one story that I love, and we have a whole host of entrepreneurs in this room, and healthcare has been so important, but think of FedEx. It's one of the great stories of an entrepreneur. And then lastly, the fourth leg of the stool. Now, this is something I have no game. I have no game, but part of our department is about funding our Tennessee Entertainment Commission. I think what would be relevant to you guys is the show Nashville. That is part of our budget. But when you look at what happens, and again, I'm not going to read this to you, the short answer is jobs are attached. We commit incentives. Are we the market leader here? No, we're not, because Georgia has a budget of about 10x of what we have. Louisiana is in that game. But the best part is when it comes to the music component, I think we've locked that side up. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for this time together. Want you to know one thing. We're going to go to work this afternoon and we're going to continue to recruit great jobs to our state. And I want to just say this to you about our pipeline. It is as robust as it's been since I understand Governor Haslam's been in office. And that's a byproduct of a lot of work by a lot of people that have created a great environment for Tennesseans and a great environment to recruit people to our state. So thank you very much. And Kate, Attorney, you guys, I think we're going to now thank you, sir.
Commissioner, I learned the importance of titles and addressing people correctly when I worked for Ambassador Rogers. Do you want us to call you Commissioner or the Honorable or just Bobby?
Bobby would be.
I thought
what
you
I
were
would
going to say
prefer, but you're nice. Thank
Bobby,
you, sir.
welcome to Lipscomb. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. You referred to Tennessee Promise, but I don't think you mentioned Tennessee Reconnect. And that's a really important program, if I'm not mistaken. That was just passed by the legislature.
That is correct.
And that may affect some employees of businesses here this morning. So tell us what Tennessee Reconnect is all about.
All right. Well, first of all, the Tennessee Promise is what we talked about. That was the initiative the governor and the General Assembly approved, where it's a tuition-free pathway for any high school senior to go back and get a TCAT certification or a two-year community college. That's in its second year, and we've seen an enormous amount of success. It's not perfect, but successful nonetheless. And so with the last General Assembly, we've now extended that to every Tennessean, no matter how old they are. So I'm age 57. I can now go back and get either a TCAT certification or get my associate degree at a community college. So that now is for every Tennessean.
All right. And the Tennessee Reconnect program allows employees to do some graduate work to return to school at a later point. Is that correct?
Well, when it comes to graduate school, this is really for the two-year associate degree and then your TCAT certifications.
Okay. All right. Thanks for clarifying that, Kate.
I just want to remind everybody you can text a question if you have a question this morning as well, so feel free to do that. So you talked about, of course, so many benefits that Tennessee has to companies that are coming here. What's the ace in the hole that you know is going to get them every time? And then what do we need to get better at?
Okay, that's a great question.
Great question.
The ace in the hole is our governor.
Okay.
The second ace in the hole is our mayor for Middle Tennessee. And I share that with you because our job is to get to the finals of the sweepstakes bake-off. And if we can get to the finals, which is typically down to 2 or down to 3, that's when we ask our great mayor and our great governor to come to the table, and they are outstanding. But remember, at that point, the stakes are so large, the dollars, the incentives are significant. And so it's a matter of bringing in the closer. And so our job is to ask the mayor and the governor to help us close it.
That's good. What do we need to get better at? What do you think is?
Well, all right, so this is a little bit longer answer, Kate, but I'm just going to simply say it's workforce development. And that is not only a regional issue, a statewide issue, but that is a southeastern issue. And that is just simply a workforce that is educated to deal with advanced manufacturing today. So I'm really talking about manufacturing. At the same time, as Dr. Lowry mentioned, we are recruiting a company or two to Middle Tennessee that is not manufacturing, and they're looking for very skilled IT, healthcare, coding, everything that you would see that you would, well, let me just leave it at that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Here's a question that's come in that I think would probably be on the minds of most of us here. Walk us through the typical process that you have to go through, probably a fairly long process, and I'm sure very complicated, to recruit a business to come into the state of Tennessee? What's the mechanics of
All right,
that?
for a company that is new to Tennessee, and I'm going to focus on maybe the larger projects, but 9 out of 10 times, as large as these international and global companies are, they will hire a site selection specialist. And that site selection specialist has one job, and that's for he or she to de-risk the decision, which basically says, let's take all these factors and throw them in various buckets, and let's see how we can de-risk so when you make a decision, Company X, we've eliminated all the risk. And so what is the second driver behind that is, at the end of the day, it's about incentives. And so thank goodness we have a great legislator group and a great governor. They're so pro-business because these are expensive. And then you say, well, how expensive are they? Well, we're a very open book. We have a fast-track group of incentives, and we have capital grants. The short answer is, at the end of the day, when it comes down, it is about economic incentives. So you've got to have your best foot forward there, and obviously you've got to have a workforce, and you've got to have site ready, what we call, when these companies are ready to make the final decision, Tony, they have basically, they've sized the market, they know what the plant looks like, they know how many people they're going to employ, they know what the CapEx budget is, and then they're in a hurry. So when they come to Tennessee, they want to make sure that we have sites that are ready to go, meaning the pads are poured, all the utilities are at the site, and they're off to the races. So what makes us a little more competitive, if we have a larger inventory than perhaps the next state, that creates an advantage. But some of our challenges, candidly, across in our more rural areas, we have some great communities that have fantastic natural assets. The challenge is the closest interstate's an hour away, or there is no rail spur, or there is no infrastructure, because as we know, you have to bring raw materials and goods to the site, you manufacture and you ship it out. And so what we are blessed with right now is a very large inventory, but it has to be site, pad ready to go.
So what industries are you targeting for that? And then does that match up with the industries that you see are emerging that we want? How, you know?
Great question. Do we ever say no? Are there industries that we may not be the best fit? We do. We have a process. By and large today, the large projects are advanced manufacturing. And then the other group are IT and white collar related. And so if we look at last week, the governor asked me to present to the cabinet what was going on, all in about 2 minutes. And so what I finished with was what the pipeline looks like. Now, we're under NDAs with every one of these companies, so I certainly don't want to get ahead of my skis here. But I'll simply say to you, if you look at what we call large job opportunities, we're defining those, Kate, as 600 jobs and greater, 600 to 2,000. So game changers for whatever city lands those opportunities. And what's interesting about it is a third of them are over in West Tennessee, a third are in Middle, and a third are in East. But I would say the supermajority would be manufacturing.
Bobby, we've got a $6 billion transportation plan on the table here in Nashville, and I know you're responsible for the entire state of Tennessee, but you've also got a big stake in the future of Middle Tennessee, not just Davidson County, but the 8 or 9 or 10 counties around Davidson. What is ECD, what's the state of Tennessee going to do to help us get that $6 billion plan approved?
Well, we have a fantastic Department of Transportation that has a significant budget. But for what we're trying to solve for, that's mass transit. And I'm not sure that the resources, historically, those problems and challenges have been solved by the federal government in federal dollars. We know they're not readily available today. That will be one of the great challenges to figure it out, because it's not like the internet. You flip a switch and you turn on the internet. When it comes to those large mass transit, you've got to figure out, well, where do you start? As you know, while we're very fortunate with our location. We have limestone, 3 feet below the surface, and the cost for all of our construction friends, it's enormously expensive. So the short answer is that is way above what I couldn't really share much that would be of value to how we're going to solve that, Attorney.
What about another concern, particularly of people here in our area, is the cost of living increase? Are you here, is that a concern of yours as you're trying to recruit to the state?
The
Are you
cost of
hearing
living
about that?
is an issue in Nashville. Well, let me back up. The ability to find affordable housing is a little bit of a challenge. And so the great news is we don't, when these consultants lay out all of the de-risk items, so far that has not been one that has been, put back in our face, and so we've not been eliminated because of our housing expense.
So here's a question that probably came from my friend Toby Compton, although it's not signed. What part, if any, will your organization play in the bid to get an MLS soccer team here in Nashville?
Well, that's a great question. That's going to be solved between private capital, Bill Haggerty and John Ingram are going to work from a private side, and then that'll be the city and I think Vanderbilt University when it comes to the physical assets, the stadium. But we at ECD don't look at that really as part of our mission, in that it's not about creating jobs. Now, granted, you're going to have soccer, you're going to have jobs, but that's just not an area where we would be probably have a seat at the table.
Okay.
Changing gears a little bit, can you tell us what's been the most surprising thing for you moving from a public sector role to a government role? What did you?
Well, that's a great question, Kate. I think it's that this is more of a public role than I probably am always comfortable. I've just never been in the more public role, but it's public service, and the best news is it's all of 24 months. And so I'll exit stage when the governor exit stage, unless we have some disruption. But the short answer is I will look forward to going back to private business and just being a whole lot more, just a lot quieter. So because it does require an enormous amount of travel, which I love, and it requires enormous amount of energy, which I still have. But at the end of the day, it's still a very public role that I'm not probably best suited. It's public service, but it'll stop. It'll end in January of 19.
Well, we're doubly appreciative of you here this morning, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amongst all of your friends.
Bobby, your counterpart in the federal government, I guess, would be Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross. And I'm sure you don't want to get into a lot of discussion about the politics, the current political climate and all that, but can you talk a little bit about how ECD interfaces with the Department of Commerce? Can you talk about Trump administration priorities, whether you agree or disagree? What do you say when you are on the phone with Secretary of Commerce Ross about what we need in the state of Tennessee?
Well, let me just say this. We are hearing more and more from our international companies. NAFTA is a big issue, and they're asking us what is going to happen in Washington. And unfortunately, those are federal policies that are made, and then when you distill it down, a lot of these opportunities and decisions are simply made by the stroke of a pen, and that's part of the executive order process that President Trump, he owns that. The short answer there is well, this week we had a group in that has a couple of $2 billion of invested capital in our state, and they're worried about the tariffs. But since we at the state don't make federal policy, we simply provide the sympathetic ear, and then we do share with our senators in Washington, what is so important, because no one wants a trade war, I promise you. It may sound good, but it's nothing more than a chess match that really has no nice outcomes, because all the flow of capital coming to our country right now, it is enormous. And you throw up a handful of tariffs, and you're just going to freeze the process. Everybody's just going to stop. And we have so much momentum going. So we're hopeful that we will not enter into any trade wars, and life will be much better for all of us.
All right, we've probably got time for one more question, so Kate, why don't you take that one? And thank you, Bobby, for being here.
Can you tell us a little bit about, you have a finite amount of time in your role. What are you planning to do in that finite period of time, especially when you look at your leadership style, where you believe it's all going when you're done, you know?
All right, so great question. My job, Kate, is to not disrupt what the 100 colleagues are doing every day, which obviously has been very successful. And so what I'll spend my energy on is working on the very large transactions, which we're excited to hopefully announce 1 or 2 or 3 in the next, call it 30 to 60 to 90 days. Also pay attention to our rural communities. And we talked a little bit about that's part of our responsibility. Focus on workforce development. And again, it's not such an issue in Nashville or Middle Tennessee, but it is an issue outside of Middle Tennessee. And so I plan to basically keep everything rolling forward, but focusing on those initiatives.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here this
Bobby,
morning.
thanks so much for
appreciate
being
it.
here.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Commissioner, thank you very much for your public service. Thank you very much for being here this morning to educate us and inspire us as we think with you about how it is that we can win jobs to Tennessee. We really appreciate you being here. There's a company, an electrical wiring manufacturing company in Ohio, that looked out one day and said, we have a tremendous challenge in terms of continuing to recruit talent. We have a hard time of getting people to come and to move into the middle part of Ohio. And so they began looking around and saying, where can we develop a workforce? Perhaps similar challenges to what some of our other counties in Tennessee face. They looked around and they noticed that there was a ton of high school dropouts in their community. And so they went to the school district and they said, we would love for you to share with us the names of all of those that have dropped out of high school over the past 3 or 4 years. What we want to do is we want to pay them to come and work for our company, but as we pay them to come and work for our company, what we will do is this, and that is that we will have them work for 3 or 4 hours a day for our company, and then for those that have not completed their high school education, we will pay them to spend 3 or 4 hours a day working towards their GED and getting a high school diploma. They partnered up with the school district. They were given access to the names of the students that had dropped out of high school. They went and they recruited those students to their company. And what happened just several years later was that that particular company was able to graduate students that had already dropped out of high school. They were able to graduate them at a higher rate than the school district was graduating students that were currently enrolled in high school. When the CEO came and spoke about this incredible jobs creation experiment that they engaged in, what he said was perhaps what we've heard this morning. And he says that, yes, we're really proud of the success of our company, but more significantly than that, we're proud about what's happening in this community. And the way in which you transform a community is to provide people with education and to provide people with a job. And as we heard this morning, it's very similar. If we provide people with an education, if we provide people with a job, we can bring about a tremendous transformative effect in our communities. But it's not just government, it's not just the private sector, it's not just educational institutions, it's all of us working together. And all of us working together with the understanding that it's not just about our success. It's about how it is that we can work together to bring about the success of others. And so I send you forth as we think together about how we can make others successful, how we can provide opportunities for education, and how it is that we can provide more people right here in Tennessee with a job that will transform their lives and transform the communities that they live in. We look forward to seeing you back here on September 7th where we will hear from Randy Goodman and hear about the incredible work that is going on in the entertainment and music industry here in Nashville. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here.